It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters. Here's a look at the new Diamond Select Legends in 3 Dimensions Star Wars Luke Skywalker Red 5. Luke Skywalker was a Tatooine farm boy who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest Jedis the galaxy has ever known. Along with his friends Princess Leia and Han Solo, Luke battled the evil Empire, discovered the truth of his parentage, and ended the tyranny of the Sith. A talented pilot, he attacked the Death Star as Red 5 at the Battle of Yavin, ultimately firing the shot that destroyed the space station. This approximately 10-inch tall, half-scale bust of Luke Skywalker is based on his appearance in Star Wars A New Hope and features a high level of detail and exacting paint applications. It is limited to an edition of only 1,000 pieces. Now, because the folks over at Diamond Select produced the Legends in 3 Dimensions Luke Skywalker, the Force will be with us always, as we can finally put this guy on the shelf with the rest of the Legends in 3 Dimensions Star Wars statues that they put out before. Following to that, I'd like to as well thank the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide this sample that we're about to have a look at of Luke Skywalker in Red 5's outfit. Grabbing the tape measure as we always do, we're going to go back to the basics here and measure off to the very top of his head. Starting at 0 and up the way we go down the trenches. At the very top of Luke's helmet, gauge is about 10¼ inches, so we're going to stick to that. And to flip that around, you're looking at Luke Skywalker, stay on target, stay on target. You're looking at the figure or statue in this case being about 26 centimeters tall. To Luke's left, you'll see the certificate of authenticity, though to his right, what we'll get first is the product catalog that we'll flip through quickly. The product catalog, brought to us from the folks over at Gentle Giant and, of course, Diamond Select, does feature and showcase some of the various other statues that are available. If you fancy busts, then there's various different busts to choose from. If you prefer, though, your statue's more 6-scale size, then there's Stormtroopers and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I like the look of both of those. And then, if you'd like to still stick with Legends in 3 Dimensions, Diamond Select's got you covered as well, as there's 2 different troopers to add to your armada. If we flip, though, to the back, advertised here is the Premier Guild from 2021 to 2022. What exactly is the Guild and why would one want to join? Multiple tiers of membership, Premier Guild exclusive items, access to convention exclusives. Members get 5 to 15% off purchases. Members also get 25 to 80 in coupons. Earn points for every $1 spent. Top tiers choose. You're seeing for this, a free bust or statue. Join today by going to www.gentlegiantltdslimited.com/premier-guild. Check out more. Put that to the side. The statue, as promised, also comes included to his left, the certificate of authenticity. Presented here to the left, as you probably can already see, is a picture of the bust that we're about to have a look at, though to the right also shows, first of all, that's a half resin bust statue. In other words, it's half the size of Mark Hamill. If you wanted to get Mark Hamill and maybe he's too big to, well, obviously you wouldn't want to cut the top part of him off and put him on display in your statue shelf. That'll run you in trouble with the law. If you'd like to get a smaller version that would take up a little less space, then this is half the size of that actor. Out of the 1,000 copies limited to worldwide, this one happens to be 964. I wasn't sure exactly what that little 0 was. For a second when I first took it out, I thought it was an 8. I had to check my eyes after that. It was 964 out of 1,000. And then just to drive that point home further, carefully picking up the statue, carefully. On the underside of the display base, which happens to be part of the X-Wing, you'll also see the same matching number of 964 out of 1,000. Also to the sides, where the thrusters would be for the X-Wing, you can see tiny little felt feet. The felt feet are good. First of all, it prevents the scratching of surfaces when you put the statue down, but also the ever-crucial number. You don't want to wear that away. That this gives you just a little bit of lip, a little bit of space between this and whatever space you put this down. That if you happen to slide it around, you're not going to wear that number off in the process. I guess while we are on the topic of the display base, I'm going to turn it to the side so you can sort of see what's going on here. Legends in 3 Dimensions, usually what they do cleverly is they take the base and they connect it somehow to the character. No better of a connection than you have the X-Wing itself, which tiny little Luke would have been sitting inside the cockpit, apparently looking at the underbody of his own self. I do like the look of the X-Wing. It does, though, it has a very small connection, though. It's obviously bigger at the bottom. It would have to be because, of course, that would stabilize the size of the statue above. But where the cockpit is, it's a very small little space, small little quarters. Speaking of small little quarters, just behind him is R2. Nice little detail done to R2. Detailing done nicely here on the back. I like the way they've airbrushed the darker color so it looks like there's some exhaust or generally just the stuff that would start to settle as this thing's flying around in space. The thrusters, as you can also see, are nicely detailed there on either side. And again, as you follow it around, you got some nice panel lining there to the side of the ship and tiny little panel lines of the same red color on the tops and the bottoms of the thrusters. My only criticism, though, if I could offer a little bit of critique, is the sizing of the felt feet that they put. If you put Luke down, for example, which is obviously the next step that you're going to be doing after getting this guy out of the box, if you put him down, those tiny little rubberized feet does allot a little bit of gap space. Because of that, the statue is more prone to rocking back and forth. I'm exaggerating this obviously a little bit, but if you're going to be putting this into a room where kids are going to be running around, or maybe any time that room happens to shake, I mean, obviously you don't want to talk about earthquakes, but if you are going to be in an area where these things may start to rattle, you may not want to put Luke on a higher shelf, just because, again, like just to look at him from the side, a lot of his weight also is leaning forward this way, more than the back. But you can see how just that little bit of space, they're not completely leveled flat. So you can see Luke rocks just a little bit. I happen to wonder, because of course the base is an X-Wing after all, what if they had actually taken the wings of the X-Wing? Because, again, it can either fold in or it can fold out, making the marker of the X. If they had actually made the X parts of the wings sticking out, that would obviously stabilize the statue. Thinking further of that, of course, if you have the wings also sticking out, they're probably going to be more prone, because they're smaller pieces after all. This is all resin after all. Even the visor seems to be resin. If you have the wings fanned out like that, they obviously would be a little bit more prone to breaking. And that may have been one thing that they decided to do and abandon it altogether. Either way, though, the statue does have, I think, a very nice presentable base. But again, just for the way it rocks back and forth, just be careful. That's all I'm going to say. Picking up the statue, though, now getting a closer look at Luke Skywalker. First of all, I want to say, the face is pretty good. It does deliver what I feel to be a good likeness here of Mark Hamill. Even got the little moles down there as well. I like the fact that they even included those little touches of detail. Paint is pretty good on this. Flesh tone, I think they've captured, well, realistic flesh tones. Sometimes with statues especially, it can be a little bit questionable when not Diamond Select necessarily, but any company decides to go with flesh tone, it has to be dead on. I think that's a pretty good skin tone that they've used for Luke. He does have a little microphone here, of course, that sticks out the back here, or the bottom end of his helmet. So we'll be a little bit careful of this. This, again, does seem like it's all made of resin. Even the visor. I thought the visor, taking this out of the plastic first, or taking out the foam tray, was actually plastic. But the more I tap it, not that you really want to be doing this to a statue visor, but it does seem like the visor is also made of resin. The visor, like it does in the movie, it is away from the face. There's just a little bit of allotted space between the two. If anything, I do feel like the visor on this side sticks further down. Maybe it's my own eyes playing tricks on me, but it does seem like this visor just a little bit off on an angle. The helmet itself is nicely colored. Of course, you've got the Rebel symbols here on either side. What I do really like about the helmet is it does look aged. They've added some scuffing. They've added some brushing. They've added some black paint. So it does look like the helmet's been worn. This isn't a one that you're ordering when you're enlisting in the rebellion. You're not going to be going and signing up. What's your helmet size? You're just basically going to be grabbing yourself any helmet that possibly fits your head. And good luck from there. I do like the way they've also sculpted the hair underneath the visor, although it's a little harder to see, of course, because all you can really see is the yellow itself, but the hair is nicely sculpted and handled there as well. Overall, it's a good-looking Luke Skywalker. Then from there, of course, as we go the neck down, the bust usually is just the shoulders, right? So no arms. Arms are going to be completely gone. A waist and abdomen area, forget about it. It's basically just a V cut of the shoulder. So again, you've got the nice bright color there of the space suit, or the pilot suit that Luke would wear in the Battle of Yavin. Nicely bright and orange here on the sides. Again, you've got a little more of the lighter color on the actual suit itself. So you actually look at on the orange, the underside of the orange. It's a much darker orange than what we actually get to the top, because it looks like they've actually added a little bit of extra paint to that. A little bit lighter of that same orange, but a little bit lighter of a shade to that. Of course, he's got the front there, section colored, and it also looks like it's added just a little bit of a bluish gray. Again, I do like a little bit of detail added to that as well. The front little console, although more of it would have been seen in the movie, they've cut that right off to continue the trend of making that look like a triangular shape. You get a little bit of the reference to that. The knobs and the buttons there as well, colored in the gray and the blue. Yeah, overall, it's a really nice looking statue. This is what it looks like, obviously, from the back. You get a little bit of the tuft of hair sticking out from the bottom of the helmet. And also a little bit of the X-Wing that you normally wouldn't be able to see, because you're likely, if I'm guessing, going to be putting this on display with it facing forward. Overall, it's a good-looking statue. If anything, I would say my concern probably stems more from the way the statue stands. Because again, I'm exaggerating this, granted, yes, but just by, again, moving my arm back and forth, move my hand back and forth, you can kind of see just how much Luke does wobble like this. This would be a statue, I think, for the size of the footprint that they gave you for the base, one that I would probably keep closer to the ground. If you are one that likes to have floating shelves, for example, or you like to have a lot of your statues on higher up places where you can come into your room and kind of admire them from the top rather than bottom, I think I'd probably be leaning more to the idea of actually displaying Luke more on the bottom area of your collection. Because if you are putting him to the top, he is going to be leaning or rocking a little bit. And you would hate to have a bang happen in your room where poor Luke would take a tumble. One thing I constantly commend Diamond Select and Gentle Giant for doing when it comes to their Legends in 3 Dimensions, not only giving us really super detailed statue buzz, but also finding a clever way to connect the display base in more ways than one. Obviously, it's the thing that's going to keep the statue from falling over, but you can't just simply give it just a regular display base. Why not have a little bit of fun with it? So usually those display bases always tie into the character in some way, and what a better way for Luke Skywalker with the Battle of Yavin, but actually having the display base being an X-Wing. Even though the namesake X-Wing is completely gone, all we're really technically getting is the cockpit, the front end of the ship, and the 4 thrusters on either side of it. Interesting thing, though, about the thrusters is not only by removing the wings, you've kind of made a smaller footprint than unfortunately a lot of the weight of the statue has to sit on top of. But I've noticed as well with the thrusters, and you'll see a couple of them as well as this spins around in the rotisserie. The one that's coming up right now, so if we're looking at it, it's the top left. Or I guess the bottom left. See how there's a little bit of space underneath the thruster? Technically, all 4 of them have a little bit of gap space underneath. But I noticed that that one above all the other 3 seems to be a little bit higher. And I wonder if that's the little bit of space that resulted in that statue starting to teeter. Now, it's not teetering right now as it spins around on the rotisserie. It's not doing that at all. But as you saw in this review, by just taking my finger and tapping the top of the head, the statue bust does wiggle a little bit. Yeah. So I would certainly advocate, if you guys are on the fence at wanting to get the statue, first of all, if you're a fan of Star Wars, I think this one is definitely one you will want to add to your collection. But if you are looking to pick this one up for yourself, and you are one that likes to collect and display a lot of your statues on a top shelf, so you're walking in the room and they're high above, up at the top by the ceiling, probably not maybe a good idea with Luke Skywalker. Unless you know that that's a room that doesn't have a lot of shaking going on. If you have kids, for example, that run in and out of rooms, and you'll always notice when they do that things start to rattle around in your room, maybe that's not the place where you're going to be wanting to put Luke Skywalker. Instead of looking to the skies, instead look to the ground. Decide somewhere lower down where you want to be putting Luke here. Because again, the sizing of the X-Wing not having its wings after all, and by just a little bit of space that's underneath a couple of those thrusters, I don't want to think that your Luke Skywalker is going to fall off the shelf. He hasn't so far right now in this review, and he certainly isn't moving or wiggling at all. And you can see it for yourself as this guy spins around. But I do worry that putting this guy on a higher surface area, this guy might take a tumble one day. And if he does, you're going to be disappointed that he fell. What do you guys think of the statue, though? Let me know down below in the comments section. And have you been collecting any of the Legends in 3 Dimensions? If you have, let me know down below in the comments section what statues those were. And speaking of which as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that did provide the sample of the new Legends in 3 Dimensions Luke Skywalker from the Battle of Yavin. As always, guys, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit with a like? If you're loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly do want to stick around for more, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and the ever-crucial bell notification. I always say it's ever-crucial, but it certainly helps you to get the 411 of whenever new videos are popping up. I mean, of course, I can always remind you at the very end of these videos that new videos are always coming your way. You always know as well. This channel always has new content coming your way. But to get those friendly reminders, hit that bell notification. Popping up also at the very end of this video will be a playlist. In fact, there might even be more than one. One for Diamond Select, one for statues. So pick your poison. If you have a little bit of time on your hands and certainly want to see the other things I've reviewed for Diamond Select in the past, check out those playlists that'll be popping up at the very end of this video. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.